reporting, journalism, commentating. What kind of, kind of set your soul on fire for it, starting out, going to Boulder for school, for journalism and everything, and how did that all kind of, form and mold to your style and what you're doing now today?
That's a good question. As I started as a kid going to Bronco games. I grew up in Colorado and just started with a love of football and sports. And my parents had season tickets to the Broncos, so I got to grow up with John Elway. And what better way to root for a team than to have John Elway as your quarterback and Terrell Davis as your running back, and finally get a couple Super Bowl victories in the late 90s. So that was pretty cool. And then I played sports. I ran track and cross country and played basketball. And so that's sort of where the love started. I always had a love for writing. And so I just used to write a lot. And then when I got to the University of Colorado, I knew I wanted to be in journalism. I wanted to be in broadcast news. And I took writing courses and also some broadcast courses. I did both of those at the same time. And, just really discovered a love for that I could combine it with sports. And I didn't really know that or think about it until I got to college. So I got to cover the Buffaloes. They had a really good football program back then. And, they just kept going from there. Got my first job at a newspaper and worked at a few small towns like Odessa, Texas, home of Friday Night Lights, where the book and the movie and all that had come about from that city. So that was wild covering high school football there. It's, as everybody knows, it's a religion in Texas. And, getting 22,000 fans to fill that stadium was pretty cool. So, and then I became a columnist at the Los Angeles Daily News and, just was able to cover all sorts of sports. A Jill of all trades, they used to call me. I'm sure you're the jack of all trades, and they call me the Jill of all trades. So, so it was neat being able to be versatile and cover a lot of sports. And then I moved over to Fox Sports West, where I was a sideline reporter for the Los Angeles Angels and the Anaheim Ducks. And so that was great. And now I'm a freelancer and free agent. So I do a lot of different things, not with one certain company, but with a bunch of different companies. And during the pandemic, I got to try my hand at play-by-play and color commentary. I'll be doing that again this weekend for high school football. And so really just able to, try a bunch of different things, and which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I mean, freelance, you get to do a ton of different things for a ton of different companies. And you mentioned doing commentary and some play-by-play for high school football as well. It's fun. I'm doing high school football right now as well. But, going from college sports to high school sports, it's a little bit, less disciplined in a sense when it comes to the media side and getting, your info together. Is that a challenge for you?
Yes.
Going from, pro sports where it's like, okay, we expect this from you, to high school where it's like, yeah, just come, show up. You broadcast the game.
It's so exactly. And it's so easy to prepare, or it's a lot easier to prepare for college and pro games because you have everything there for you. And even some of the top tiered high school football games, especially like private schools like Oaks Christian out here, and you have, Modern Day and all these, St. John Bosco, all these teams from California that people nationally seem to know and have a good idea about. So it's very interesting. Last week, I was doing color commentary for a couple of schools, Monrovia and Los Altos, and I live in LA, and there's a million high schools, and I didn't know much about either of those programs. So I really just basically got all my information from both of the coaches, calling them the week of, spending a lot of time with them. And I was lucky that, they were able to give me anecdotes like, this tailback was nicknamed Leche, which is milk in Spanish. And because they call him that because he's like, the delivery guy, he's always consistent. He carries everybody, carries everything. And I thought that was cute, right? You're not going to get that stuff in high school unless you, do as much homework as you can, which again is talking to the coaches and or players, but we're limited to doing that because of, COVID and the pandemic, which is totally understandable. So, the play-by-play person for that game showed up having not talked to either of the coaches. And I was like stressed for him because I thought I can't imagine not even having starters or, I always shared all that information with him. but I couldn't imagine showing up to a game that unprepared.
Kind of touch on that, of being prepared, whether it be at the high school level where it could be much more difficult to find information. You really got to, get to know people and build those relationships, those key, networking opportunities with coaches and stuff, as opposed to the pros or even college where like they'll go out of your way to make sure you have your stuff because you have to do it right. Who or at what point in time, whether it be at Boulder, having your first professional job out of school, did you realize like, this is how I have to prepare and this is what kind of works for me?
I became friends with John Henderson, who was covering the Colorado Buffaloes at the time. He was covering their basketball and football programs for the Denver Post. And he was noticing me taking all these notes handwritten. He was showing me like, hey, here's a good way to do running play-by-play of basketball. I knew football, but this day, it's from when I was covering high school football in Odessa, Texas. And I still use that sheet. I can't eat. I'm sure there's other ones, just because that's the way I'm used to. So basically just getting help, but asking, just always been pretty lucky in that, people have helped me along the way and asking for help, whether it's aspiring journalists in sports or news or entertainment or culture or whatever it is, seeing how people who are in the industry do it and kind of gathering, stuff you like from a bunch of different people and kind of going from there.
Oh my, yeah, 100%. I definitely feel as if, and better than me, but the sports industry alone or in media, like everybody's willing to help each other out. Like you were kind enough to hop on here with me, as I'm sure people were kind enough to take time out of their day to talk to you at a young age. Like, at what point did you kind of notice that in this business, and how important was it for you to like think like, okay, years ahead from now, like I'm gonna want to give back and help the younger generation in this?
I always believe in paying it forward. I say yes to everybody who wants to. I mean, first of all, talking sports or talking, I think that the time you have to start worrying is when nobody cares about you.
Mm.
What are you doing to help others? So me and also joined a lot of groups. Like I've been a women sports group and the Association of Women in Sports Media, which is not limited to and so you would think that there's probably been a lot of women along the way that have helped me, and there have been, but I would say as a whole, probably more men. And I think that's pretty cool. It's not gender based. It's been, you seek out who to get help from. And, just the other day, there was a big play in a Dodgers-Giants game, and I was covering the Angels game, and I asked Mark Gubicza, former Royals pitcher, and he's a longtime Angels longtime Angels announcer, and I asked him to explain, this play and how it cost the Dodgers a game. It was when Will Smith was playing first base for the first time, and so he was kind of walking me through like what he didn't do and how he didn't have the experience of the footwork and how he could have made this, catch from a awkward throw from second base by Trey Turner. So anyway, just the fact that, I used to be on the broadcast crew with them for the Angels, but, still we're friends, and that he took the time to kind of explain to me, and who better to talk baseball with than, people who are so giving of their time and played the game. That's always fun as well.
Oh yeah, that's always an important factor too. Getting that mix of journalists and then former players who become analysts. That's I think like the perfect recipe to have not only a great conversation on air, but to build those relationships. Just at the ballpark every day or at the field or wherever you're at. And on that kind of note, when it comes to again like prepping for certain things and getting to know players and building relationships in order to talk about them in a way that they kind of haven't been talked about before. on air? How important is it for you to like not only just know like of course the stats and what's going on, whether it be like an injury bug that's been ailing them or anything else regarding their play, but at the same time getting to know the actual person and their mannerisms and the things that make them tick?
For me, that's the essence of storytelling, and that's what I love. I love that more than stats. I mean, you certainly have to do the X's and O's, but I think some of the most incredible stuff about Mike Trout is his giving nature and all the Make-A-Wish that he does, and the kids that he meets, and those kind of stories. To stay with the Mike Trout example, I've also talked to him and written an article about his golf game. He and many other athletes who are superstars in their sport don't always love like talking about themselves in baseball. And he golf, and he's a really good golfer as well. So I got to do a fun article with him about golf. And of course he already has an ace because he's, as good as golf almost as he is at baseball. So as we find a lot of athletes are good at, other sports too, especially golf. So for me, that's, again, the essence of covering sports is covering the human. What makes these guys tick? Because we all love that. We love to know, their nicknames and, how many kids they have and what their hobbies are and what their charitable foundations are, how they like to give back. I did a story a couple of years ago on a Ducks minor league hockey player who lives about maybe a 15-minute drive from Anaheim, and he lives on a farm. He grew up on a farm. I mean, so I went to the farm with him, and I mean, we're talking, horses and goats and pigs and a million dogs and hairless cats, and I mean, it's cool because like that's what he loves to do when he's away from the rink is hang out with his pigs and donkeys and learning their names and that they like Fruit Loops for snacks. I mean, that's just fun,
Oh my God, 100%. You'd never know that unless you got to know them too. Now, how do you portray that, like telling a story like that on air in a sense, like trying to at the same time be professional, but at the same time trying to show their real life personalities as opposed to just the player that everybody's used to seeing on television?
Well, it's harder to do that now during the pandemic for sure, but we did that like pre-pandemic. I think you can tell it best by the video. Taking the time to be there so you can see him interact with the animals, which is what we did, and kind of took a tour of his farm and his roller hockey rink, and so that was pretty cool. He you could hear him talk about it, and he's very well spoken, and that would have been fun as well. But the best thing about it was, actually being there on the farm, being able to show the animals because, they really, and his interaction, kissing them and petting the goats and the horses, that's the cutest stuff. So again, it's very challenging now for everyone to be able to talk to athletes. And we don't, like in Major League Baseball, for example, we're not in the clubhouse anymore. And boy, that's where you really got a ton of your good stuff. And guys now, when they come off the field after batting practice, all come out at the same time. So you got to try to get one or two, and you may miss the guy you want to talk to, or, you may not have as long with them. And it's just a different setup now. It's more challenging. It's not impossible, but certainly a little bit more challenging.
Now, do you think that this is going to be the new norm just because now we know that this right here is an option as opposed to you guys being in the clubhouse, or like not even the fact that, COVID's involved, but like 5 years down the road when it's not an issue, people could just say like, oh, we could just hop on Zoom. Like kids on the East Coast will no longer have snow days because they could just do virtual class, I was having that conversation. I'm like, hey, you're getting robbed of snow days now because teachers are like, all right, let's just hop on Zoom because that's easy and it's accessible and it's efficient.
Yeah, I hadn't heard about that. And by the way, you said 5 years down the road. Gosh, I certainly hope this is not going on 5 years down the road. But I agree. It's like companies who have decided, their employees basically are saying like, we're going to work from home remote 3 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is. And we're finding that people can still do their jobs. But definitely having that interpersonal, person-to-person interaction, at a sporting event is tough. I know certainly that our Baseball Writers Association is certainly going to push to, when it's safe, to be back in the clubhouse, because again, that's where we get that time with athletes, and I know that's their space as well. But we have that, hour before the game, an hour after the game. And so now when we're talking to guys post game, it's, and the teams are good about getting you the starting pitcher and somebody who, if they had the game winning hit, or they made a game ending error or anything like that, they're pretty good about getting them. But you may want to talk to a couple other people too. And now we're just, able to get the people that are on the Zoom. And so you kind of just have to make do with what you're able to get. So I really hope that we're back at some point back in the clubhouse and back on the field and where we can get that, even going to, taking a guy to a school and doing a school visit. We're starting to see some of that stuff outdoors, but again, those are where you really get to see guys shine, women and men, in terms of, reading to kids or, meeting a kid that had emailed them or reached out to them on social media and, being able to see them out in the community. I really hope we're back there soon. I mean, we used to do at Fox Sports West, which is now Bally's, we used to do car rides, where you ride to the ballpark with the player and have like a fun car ride conversation. Hopefully that kind of stuff is back too, but probably not anytime soon.
Right. And it kind of hurts both sides of the relationship too, because like if a new reporter can't really do his job and build those relationships with players, he can't really like analyze and talk about them in a way that they'd want, in a sense, on the air. And that hurts, the player's relationship with a reporter or a broadcaster too, because they don't really know each other. They really haven't had that face-to-face human interaction. And it's bad on both sides, bad for both parties, because your relationship's not building and things are just not clicking, on air, which is not a good thing.
Yeah. And if you're new, players don't know if they can trust you, right? So you're just asking questions on a Zoom. And it's good to always be there and be as consistent as you can, whether you're on Zooms or being there and being seen on the field or the game, things of that nature. But it certainly is a lot tougher to build that trust. And I imagine we haven't had the kind of features and in-depth stuff that we really could see. There's still plenty of it, but probably not to the amount that we would normally have.
No. And, on the topic of relationships, when it comes to this industry or any industry really, whether it be business, film, music, sports, whatever, it's important to build connections with people, not only for, benefits, but to build relationships, to look back on everything and be like, this was well worth it because of the memories and the relationships and everything that I built here, in a sense, like everything that you're going to look back on. Who are some of the key relationships that you've had like along your journey that have, again, shaped and formed who you are today, whether it be as a reporter, as a person, doing whatever you're doing?
Well, I think certainly in the sports world, just whatever beat I'm covering. And, that's sometimes been a challenge for me throughout my career too, because I do so many different things. You kind of pop in at Dodgers one day and, USC football practice one day and a golf tournament another day. And so you just try and keep up, as best you can. But I think, for example, I once took a motorcycle ride with Grady Little, the former Dodgers, a while back, a manager of the Dodgers, Red Sox.
Right.
And because he used to talk about his motorcycle. And I thought, wow, this major league manager is like riding to the park from Pasadena to Los Angeles on his motorcycle. And so I asked him, and maybe if I had never known him, could I just ask him to, get a ride on his motorcycle? I mean, I don't know if I didn't, know somebody as well or hadn't seen them around much, I would probably say no, but he was a nice guy. So, and that was, what I thought was such a fun feature, as a featurey column that I did once, just from basically sitting on his motorcycle. And I never said I went with him, but I just basically did the whole story of Grady Little and his day and how it starts with, this coffee shop and he loved to get lost in Pasadena. And so, just riding around on his motorcycle and that was freeing for him before he, started the stress of the day, which is, trying to get the Dodgers back to the World Series, which had evaded so many managers that managed there until last year when Dave Roberts did it. But, like Dave Roberts, for example, I covered him when he was a player with the Dodgers before he got traded to the Red Sox. And So he knows me from those days. Now that he's managing the Dodgers. So just sort of those relationships. And then I think, your relationships in life lead up to being able to know how to develop those relationships, like with your family and the habits that you had. Like, my mom was my biggest fan in sports, and, I used to write every day when I got home from school with snacks and, just those sort of things, just learning about people. She was so good with people, like everybody. I mean, whether it's, the janitor or the grocery store employee or whoever. And so we learned those skills, through other people. So it's been pretty cool, but you're right. That's just it's the biggest, one of the biggest things is not just, X's and O's and stats and, calling balls and strikes. It's about the people and developing those relationships. So, and that goes over time.
Oh yeah, 100%. It comes with those experiences for sure. And I guess to kind of put a bow on that, and this will be the last thing I ask you. I know your husband's got to take care of business here in a few seconds, but I wanted to, when it comes to the relationships that you build, both inside and outside of work, when it all comes together, you got, whether it be play-by-play for high school games, reporting for MLB Network, you got Scout and Cellar too as, a side hustle per se. How do you balance all this while also, being, a part of a family, being a wife, how do you kind of, juggle all of this with that, and at the same time, keep a level head in a sense?
It's a good question. There's so many. I mean, you face this as well, especially when you're a college, when you've been a college student. I know you graduated recently, but you're a college student and you've got your studies and you've got your work and your internships and your family. And it's about time management. And I'm not saying I always do it well, but, I try to get the Scout and Cellar. I do with a lot of reporters who are also in the baseball business, and that's been a lot of fun. It's a clean crafted wine business, so I try and send some of those emails off in the morning, and then I send some sports emails off, and I'm always pitching ideas for to stations and outlets, and then I'll work on preparing for maybe my game on Saturday, and then I'll go cover a game, and so yeah, it's sometimes it's a little crazy, and you try to stay organized as best you can and still work out, and we have a dog as well that got attacked by a Rottie last week, so she's in a cone and crashing around. I'm surprised she hasn't crashed around during our Zoom, but again, it's just everybody's balancing a lot of stuff in life. And I will tell you this, I spent a lot less time in the car. In LA, I think it took me almost 2 hours to get to the Angel game. I'm 60 miles away from Anaheim, from Angel Stadium, in Anaheim. So I used to spend a ton of time in the car, and now we do a lot of stuff from home. If you're covering the game, you go, of course, but I used to spend tons of time in the car. So now I feel like I have a little more free time. Dodger Stadium's a lot closer for me as well. So, but it's just been an interesting balance, and COVID has certainly changed a lot of it.
Right. You live and you learn something new every day, and how to adapt to certain things and keep everything level in a sense, like it's not always like that. Like it gets stressful, people cancel things. You got to rearrange stuff, like stuff happens all the time, but I guess you live and you learn from those experiences every day. And I could, again, pick your brain about some stuff for like another hour here if I could, but I know you got to go.
We can do that later, of course. I'm happy to answer any questions you want. But this is the world that we live in now. It's shared workspace at home, right? So he is the Rams Spanish radio color analyst. So he's got a Rams video to do. They used to go on site to do those during the week, and now they do those from home, and certainly coverage at SoFi Stadium, but other things are done here at home now. So it's always a balance for everyone, right?
There it is, a balance in a relationship, balance in work. But I'll let you go. We'll be in touch soon. Definitely love to do this again. But thanks for being gracious enough to take the time, Jill, and have a great rest of your day.
Thanks again for having me, Jack. I certainly appreciate it. And you asked good questions, and wishing you well. And you ever have anything you need, questions, need advice, whatever, let me know.